What's up, guys? So we're gonna break down the anatomy of the long fight with Ozzy. I'm gonna be mic'd up in the suit. So as I'm going through the motions, I'm gonna explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how I'm doing it. And then we're gonna work the whole entire thing. So yeah, enjoy. Hey. All right, so in the beginning, what we're doing is what we do with Ozzy is we just end up in. I mean, the dog already is super amped up, so there's no point in more agitation. I mean, we already know that he has the intent for the bite. So just sending him in kind of gets us straight to it. So we'll do the catch and then I'll start working him just a little more. Ooh. What I mean by that is letting him get comfortable. Countering into me, marking the counters, not only verbally, but physically. So every time he counters, you see my left hand, I'll actually flex. And in this Ray Allen suit, he can really feel me. So rewarding the counters, kind of letting him get into it. In the beginning of the fight, I don't really throw too much pressure on because he's already so elevated. When adrenaline, same thing when you get into a fight. You know, in the first 30 seconds, minute, whatever, first round, you're super amped up. So not much thought process goes into it other than like basic training fundamentals that you've gone through in the past. So in the beginning, I just let them cool down into the fight, and then we start working on techniques. It's a whole other reason why, why we do the long fights too. People always ask like, we're gonna have to fight with the dog for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or it'll never have to happen, but hopefully you'll never have to use your dog either. So we train for that 1% of that time. And also, the longer the dog fights, the more understanding of the fight that they'll have. Meaning that once they settle into the fight, they start to have to think about what they're doing versus using all that adrenaline and dopamine in the beginning. Now they're like, I have to use pain compliance to make this guy stop. And that's where the intervals and pressure come in. So now I'm going to kind of work him a little more with some basic pressure stuff. Having him use pain compliance to have me stop adding the pressure. And I'll explain it as we go. So here we go. Raise his feet. He has to counter for me to let go. Has to be a good counter though. We go give him a little lift. I'll grab his flank as well. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put him against the fence. I'll push him into the fence. If he counters, I'll bring him away. Just so he understands. He's pushing me against that fence. I don't like that. The way I get out of it is by making him hurt, causing pain compliance. So again, pushing him into the fence. And honestly, if I wasn't mic'd up and doing this like anatomy of the long fight, there'd be a lot more yelling and screaming and stuff. Well, Ozzy's a pro, so don't really got to worry about that. So now still adding some more fight to him. Making things a little more uncomfortable. Not super easy. Give him a little flank here. Stick him between the legs there. While flanking, again, adding more pressure intervals. Let him get settled. And then, once he's comfortable, we're going to put him in an uncomfortable position. So, I'm going to go for the roll, put him on his back. He's upside down here. And I'm going to have him counter out. Starts to maneuver his body. And he's the one that's going to have to get himself out of this position. So he's countering. And then he makes you pay. And as I mentioned, a lot of this is intervals, starting at the top, spiking in with some pressure. Put him in awkward positions. So right now I'm adding not full body, but a lot of upper body pressure on him. Oh! So adding more pressure. Ooh. And what this does, especially this, I'm not say probably towards the middle of the fight, you know, some of that adrenaline's dumped off. You know, now he's working more technically and efficiently versus in the beginning when most dogs just, you know, kind of go raw and start going into it. Now he has to think a little more, especially with how I'm fighting him. Now, what I'm doing is I'm putting him on his back, but now he's fully on his back instead of having my leg elevating him. So, as most of you guys who've been in dog training long enough, have ever heard of like alpha rolling the dog, like making him submissive. So this would be theoretically a submissive position for the dog. But now Ozzy is using this. He's learning to counter out of this position. And cause pain. So he goes into a theoretically bad position for the dog, especially when fighting a person, and makes it a positive, like countering out and causing pain. So again, getting him his wins. There we go. So now we've done some groundwork. Bring him back up. I don't want to stay too much on the ground because, you know, he has 4, I have 2. It's a little bit easier for him to stay on the ground. In some cases, not with all that interval changing, but now he has to work a little harder. He's now back on 2 legs. Again, giving him some added pressure using this wall. I put my palm against the wall, so I'm protecting his hips. So another thing too, guys, when you're adding this type of pressure to a dog, you know, it doesn't take much skill to fling a dog around and slam him into things. But, you know, you injure dogs that way. You want to make sure that you're being the best sparring partner possible. And that's by keeping the dog safe. So if you notice, I keep his spine, his neck as safely positioned as possible. My hands blocking his hips from the walls. So you can do all those pressure things that you see, but you can also do them in a technically proficient way. That'll help the dog. There you go, grab his feet. So there's another portion of this that we do as a passive period, where it's kind of a time where the dog can, if the dog was, I don't want to say weak, but tired, you know, the little saying, fatigue makes cowards of us all, they can have a chance to kind of bail out, and that's where we go into a passive period, which is typically in the middle of the conditioning fights, where I'm not doing anything. So I'm asking the handler, Aaron, where are they at time-wise? So he's 8 minutes, 15 seconds into the fight. We're gonna go 1 minute passive. This is where I'll be quiet, where the handler will give rewards for the counters. So 1 minute passive starts now. All right, so I wait for the handler to give me the cue. Once he gives me a counter, I reactivate. So during that passive period, I'm basically not giving him any rewards. not marking anything, not giving him any form of muscle flexion or that he's not really earning himself. Hey, no. So right now we give him a little more pressure, but during that passive period, he has his way out, right? So if the dog's not getting any fulfillment from the decoy, they start to essentially question themselves in the fight. Ay! Question themselves in that fight, and then a lot of dogs will out themselves too, especially if decoy's not giving any feedback, right? Ooh. So using the long fight to essentially go through intervals of what pressure, tempo, ooh, having that passive part, ooh, essentially in the middle. We did it at 8 minutes there. Ooh. 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 You know, pushing the dog, making them question themselves just a little bit, but doing it safely. You know, we're not, ooh. Ooh. You know, even when I smack Ozzy here, you know, my hand's wide open. Ooh, I'm hitting him on the sides. Ooh, not really. If you notice too, he'll hit me and then I'll tap him this way. Ooh, and then he'll counter me, right? So again, this is like all kind of fake pressure. Ooh, in a way to show him like, hey, if someone's striking you, you got to make them pay for that. So keeping the dog safe is number 1 priority when working these, you know, protection dogs. Ooh. Another benefit that this stuff had, that this type of work does, is you develop tons of jaw pressure. And if anyone's ever worked my dogs, they know that, like, you know, my dogs bite pretty hard. And a lot of the reason is because we do these on a weekly basis, if not multiple times. Ooh. Ooh. So right there, he's pushing himself up. Ooh. 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 Hey. Ooh. So right now, towards the tail end of his long fight, so I'm just gonna walk, basically the conditioning part of it, walking backwards, have him countering into me. I'm gonna do a time check here. Where's he at time-wise? He's at 12 minutes, 7 seconds. Ooh, I'm gonna go ahead and end him here. But before I do, again, guys, when you're doing these conditioning fights, it's really important to take in consideration, 1, the health of the dog. Make sure that you guys are building up to these lengths of times. Understand what you're doing it and why you're doing it. If you're intervaling, you know, pressure, don't just throw pressure to add, you know, just to throw pressure around. Make sure that you're rewarding counters. Make sure you're increasing the drives, but, you know, take it by your dog's individual fitness level as well. So I'm gonna have the handler go ahead and out the dog. And there you go. That is conditioning fights with Ozzy.